Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are not just analyzing a text, we are effectively stepping into a time machine.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I want you to really transport yourself back to a very specific moment in time. It is a warm Wednesday night.
June 15th, 1966.
Exactly. June 15th, 1966. We are in Elmira, New York.
The quintessential mid-60s summer night.
Right. The air is sticky, the humidity is just clinging to everything. The windows of this modest living room are thrown wide open, hoping for a breeze that just isn't coming. And inside that room, the atmosphere is, well, it's heavy.
But not because of the weather.
No, not at all.
It's heavy with intent. Because you have Jane Roberts, the writer in Medium, sitting in her rocking chair. But she isn't really Jane right now. She has removed her glasses. Her voice has dropped an octave. It's deeper, more authoritative with this strange, clipped accent. She is speaking as the energy personality essence known as Seth.
And across from her is her husband, Rob, scribbling furiously in shorthand, just trying to keep up with the dictation. And on this particular night, they have company. Two witnesses, Marilyn and Don Wilbur, are sitting there watching this high strangeness unfold in what is otherwise a totally normal, casual living room setting.
And that juxtaposition, that is exactly what we are diving into today.
It really is. We are looking at session 268 of the early sessions, book 6 of the Seth Material.
Published by the New Awareness Network.
Yes, and before we go any further, I just need to state for the record that this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are just here to explore the ideas contained in the source material.
And frankly, the ideas in this specific session are a wild ride.
They really are. It's one of those sessions that perfectly encapsulates why the Seth Material is so unique.
Because on one hand, you have Seth delivering incredibly technical, almost chilling instructions on the mechanics of leaving your physical body.
Astral projection.
Right, but without getting lost in the void. It's essentially metaphysical survival training.
Serious, heavy, life and death level stuff.
Very heavy.
But then, in the very same hour, Seth has to pivot to solve a domestic mystery.
A mystery involving a locked door, a missing cat, and a very confused husband.
It is the ultimate high and low mix. I mean, you have the secrets of the universe and you have who let the cat out.
Sherlock Holmes meets the Twilight Zone.
Exactly. And our mission today is to unpack all of it. We're going to look at the 3 specific forms of projection Seth outlines because they are distinct and the differences really matter.
They do.
And we're going to look at how consciousness operates when the ego is asleep, whether that means traveling to another dimension or, just sleepwalking into the kitchen.
And I think the key insight for you listening today is going to be about identity.
Identity, yeah.
Who are you when you aren't in your body? And who are you when you're acting without your conscious mind even knowing it?
Let's start with the heavy hitter, the projection. Seth opens this session by discussing psychological time and the inner senses. Now, for anyone new to this material, or even those who have dabbled, it's really easy to write this off as visualization. Oh, absolutely.
Is he just talking about really vivid dreaming?
That is the most common misconception, and Seth shuts it down immediately. He draws a hard line in the sand right here.
He does.
He says, and I quote, "Experiments and experiences using psychological time and all projection events deal rather directly with the use of these inner senses."
So what is the distinction then? For the listener.
Think of it this way. When you dream, you are usually processing. You are taking the debris of your day, your fears, your hopes, the movie you just watched, and your brain is reordering it.
It's internal housekeeping.
Exactly, internal housekeeping. But when you enter psychological time and actually project, you are tuning your consciousness to a different frequency entirely.
You're shifting gears.
Right. You are using a set of senses that belong to the inner self to perceive a reality that exists apart from your physical brain.
So if dreaming is watching a movie you wrote, projection is walking out of the theater and actually exploring the city. Precisely. It is an active exploration of an objective environment, just one that isn't physical. And in session 268, Seth breaks this down into 3 specific forms of projection.
And this is where it gets technical.
And honestly, a little bit spooky.
Let's walk through them because this really feels like a manual. First, we have Form 1. This seems to be what most people talk about when they talk about out-of-body experiences, or OBEs.
Correct. Form 1 is the classic model. If you read Robert Monroe or other explorers, this is usually where they start. In Form 1, you project out of your physical vessel. You turn around using your inner vision, And what do you see?
You see your own body.
You see your physical body lying on the bed or sitting in the chair.
That has to be so jarring. I mean, conceptually, we know we have bodies, but to see yourself from the outside essentially looking at yourself as if you were dead?
It is the ultimate validation, though. Seth implies that this form is the most common because it comforts the ego. Well, you are quote-unquote here, but your body is quote-unquote there. It proves to the conscious mind that it can exist independently.
I see.
Seth notes that in this form, you are using some inner senses, but not all of them. It's an entry-level projection. You are still tethered to the visual reality of the physical world.
Okay, so form 1 is I can see my body, I'm floating in the room. But Seth says you can shift gears mid-flight.
It does.
He says you may begin a projection in one form and then project from it to another form. So what happens in form 2?
In form 2, the visual link is severed. You project, but you cannot see your body on the bed anymore. The visual anchor is just gone.
So you're blind.
Not blind to the environment, but blind to the physical self you left behind. However, and this is the key distinction, you maintain an awareness of it. Seth calls this experiencing some duality.
Can you unpack duality in this context?
Imagine you were at the office, deeply focused on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You aren't looking at your house, right? But you know your house exists. You know exactly where it is. You might even have a vague sense of whether you left the stove on or if the window is open.
That makes sense.
In Form 2, you are traveling in a non-physical environment. Maybe you're passing through a wall or traveling a huge distance. But in the back of your mind, you still feel the hum of the physical body.
The hum.
Yeah, you might vaguely feel the weight of the blanket on your foot or the rhythm of your own breathing, even though you are miles away in consciousness.
So you are multitasking dimensionally.
Exactly. You haven't fully cut the cord of sensation. It's a bridge state. You're exploring, but you have a safety line that you can still feel.
Which brings us to the third form.
The deep end.
The way Seth describes this, the tone shifts in the transcript. He describes the third form as the vehicle of the inner self.
Yes. And this is where we leave the safety of the known universe. In Form 3, you have no visual contact with your body. You have no sensory awareness of it whatsoever. The duality is completely gone.
You're untethered.
Completely untethered. The you that is experiencing Form 3 has no connection to the you lying in bed. And Seth warns that this is the most difficult to maintain because the physical ego isn't running the show anymore.
And the ego likes to be in control.
Always. In Form 3, the ego is essentially bypassed.
And he issues a warning here that actually gave me goosebumps when I first read it. He says that if you stay away too long in this form, there is a danger.
But there's not the danger of dying, is it?
No. And that's a common trope in horror movies, right? That your silver cord breaks and you die. Seth doesn't say that at all. The danger he describes is much more psychological.
It's the danger of coming back and not knowing who you are.
That is terrifying.
He says, and I'll quote this directly, it would, for example, be quite possible to return to the physical body from this form and not recognize it as your own.
Wait, really think about that for a second. You slide back into your body, you wake up, you look in the mirror, or you just look down at your hands, and you have absolutely no idea who that person is.
It's total amnesia of the self.
Because the consciousness you were using in Form 3 is so expanded, it's so far removed from the physical personality, the you that pays taxes, worries about the laundry, feeds the cat, that the reconnection causes massive disorientation.
The mask of the physical personality just doesn't fit anymore.
Seth actually compares this to death, doesn't he?
He does. And this is the really profound insight of this segment. He says, the disorientation that it feels is the disorientation you see that it will feel when the physical body is deserted or at the point of death.
So in a way, Form 3 projection is a rehearsal.
Exactly. It is a dry run for dying. Seth suggests that by practicing this, by getting used to being a consciousness without a body, you are essentially training yourself.
Training for what comes next.
Right. So that when the final curtain actually drops, when you physically die, you aren't terrified. You don't panic. You can say, oh, I know this state. I've been here before.
That reframes the entire concept of astral projection for me. It's not just for thrill seekers or people wanting to spy on their neighbors. It's preparation for the ultimate transition.
It is spiritual survival training.
Wow.
But Seth assures Jane and Rob that usually our own subconscious shields us from this. We stick to Form 1 and 2 because our ego wouldn't stand for the intensity of Form 3.
We protect ourselves.
Yeah, we protect ourselves from that level of freedom because it's just too alien for our current state of development.
It's interesting that you use the word alien because Seth pivots in this session. We've been talking about projecting out, going to other places, but he also talks about projecting into other things. He brings up this concept of pseudo-projections.
Right. And to understand this part, we have to look at the emotional context of the room that night. We mentioned it was a hot night, but it was also a really sad week for Jane.
Yeah, the notes in the text mentioned she had been trying to nurse a young Robin back to health.
A very common occurrence for kind-hearted people, but it hit her hard. The bird had been caught by a cat, which is actually a bit of foreshadowing for later in the session. And despite her best efforts, the bird died. Jane was heartbroken. She was really upset about natural forces and the apparent cruelty of nature. Like, why did the bird have to suffer?
It's the classic existential question.
So Seth uses this emotional opening to explain a completely different mechanism of consciousness. He distinguishes between a valid projection, which is moving your consciousness to another location like we just discussed,
Right.
and a pseudo-projection.
Now, pseudo usually means fake, but he doesn't mean it's not real, does he?
No, not at all. It's pseudo only in the sense that you aren't traveling through space. It's an internal simulation. Think of it like this. If you want to understand what a house is, in a valid projection, you would fly over to the house and walk through the front door.
Okay, I'm with you.
But in a pseudo-projection, you wouldn't visit the house. You would become the house.
Become the house.
You would feel the stress on the wood beams. You would feel the transparency of the glass windows. You would feel the foundations settling in the mud.
That's a fantastic analogy. So, regarding the bird,
Seth says, you would not think what it was like to be a bird. You would momentarily be a bird.
wow.
He explains that if you want to understand the concept of oneness or nature, you don't read a biology textbook. You construct images, and you enter the life of the thing you are studying.
And this connects to how we learn on a cellular level.
Yes, this is a massive takeaway here. Empathy isn't just an emotion. It's a mechanism for data transfer.
Data transfer.
Seth says, when you do this, the knowledge becomes part of your physical cells and of your own electromagnetic structure.
So Jane's grief feeling that Bird's pain wasn't just her being sad?
No, her empathy was a tool. By grieving and projecting herself into the bird, her consciousness absorbed the reality of birdness. It actually became part of her. It wasn't just loss, it was expansion.
That makes the grief feel a lot more purposeful. It's not just suffering, it's an integration of knowledge.
Precisely. It turns a negative experience into structural growth for the personality itself.
Okay, so let's pause and just look at the scoreboard here for a second. We have Jane Roberts. She can enter a deep trance. She can leave her body in 3 different ways, risking total ego death. And she can merge her consciousness with a dying bird to understand the fundamental laws of nature.
She is a high-level operator.
Absolutely. But one of the things I love about the Seth Material, and frankly why we are doing this deep dive, is that they didn't just sit around talking philosophy. They tested it. They were skeptics of their own experience.
They really were. Rob especially. He wanted proof.
So they did the famous envelope experiments.
Right. So those listening who haven't heard of this, the setup was simple but very rigorous. Rob would receive mail. He wouldn't open it. He would seal a letter or an object inside a thick, opaque envelope.
And Jane had never seen it, didn't know what was inside.
Exactly. She would enter a light trance, hold the envelope to her forehead, and just describe what was inside.
And in session 268, the object was an announcement for a local art shop.
Simple enough. A piece of paper with some text and a logo.
Let's look at the hits here because they are incredibly specific. She's holding this envelope, eyes closed, and she says the number 10.
And looking at the object later, this notice was received in the mail on June 10th, a direct hit on the date.
Then she gets abstract. She says she sees something twisted or a framework that is broken. She's struggling to describe a shape.
This is where the visual confirmation is so fascinating. The logo on the paper was a monogram for the art shop. It was the letter A, like an A-frame house, but it was stylized so that one of the legs of the A was shorter than the other.
So literally a broken framework.
Exactly. She wasn't reading the letter A phonetically. She was seeing the geometry of the ink inside the sealed envelope. She saw the shape and described it as a twisted framework.
That's wild. But then she gets a conceptual hit that honestly blows my mind. She says she senses a path going forward or narrowing into the distance. She describes movement.
And Seth interrupts here to say this is symbolic.
Symbolic of what?
The text on the card read, continuing under new management. The business was moving forward.
What?
Think about what that implies. Her consciousness didn't just see the letters C-O-N-T-I-N-U-I-N-G. It picked up the meaning of the text. It translated the abstract concept of business continuity into a visual symbol of a path going forward.
That is the aha moment for me. It shows that consciousness doesn't just read words, it reads intent. It reads the energy behind the words.
It suggests that matter, like ink on paper, has an electromagnetic reality that communicates meaning directly.
Mm.
Jane wasn't guessing, she was decoding.
It's incredible. It validates everything Seth was saying about the inner senses. We have senses that can read meaning directly from matter.
Yes.
Okay, so we've established that Jane is a metaphysical powerhouse. She can channel, she can project, she can read sealed envelopes with her forehead, but apparently she cannot handle a stray cat.
This is the highlight of the session for me. We go from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Let's set the scene for the listeners. Rob and Jane have their own cat, Willie, but they've taken in a stray, a second cat. Rob is a meticulous guy. He checks the doors. He knows he locked the door. He knows the stray cat was inside when they went to sleep.
Right.
They wake up in the morning and the cat is outside.
It's a locked room mystery. Rob is baffled. He's looking for paranormal explanations. Did the cat teleport? Did a spirit open the door? Did Seth do it?
So they ask Seth, how did the cat get out?
And the transcript notes that Seth enters with a broad smile. You can feel the amusement radiating off him through the text. He says, I should never be the one to tell you this, for my friend Rupert will be after me with the broom next.
Rupert is the name Seth calls Jane.
Right. He refers to Jane as a male personality named Rupert.
I love when Seth gets sassy. So what's the verdict? Teleportation. Dematerialization.
Sleepwalking.
Good old-fashioned sleepwalking.
But it's the way she did it. Seth explains that Jane was sleeping. The cats started playing. They were making noise. Seth says the dear little pussies annoyed him.
The dear little pussies annoyed him.
Yes. So in a complete trance, not the Seth's trance, but just a deep sleep state, Jane got up, marched to the door, let the cat out to stop the noise, and went back to bed.
And she has no memory of this.
None. Zero. But it gets funnier. Seth says she remembered his womanly modesty even in his sleep. She apparently put her clothes on to walk down the hall, let the cat out, came back, took her clothes off, and got back in bed.
That is some high-functioning sleepwalking.
It is. And Seth jokes he had his cake and ate it too. She got the quiet she wanted, but didn't have to deal with the conscious effort of making a decision or worrying about the cat.
But there's a darker twist to this cat story, right? It wasn't just a funny oops moment.
No, and this brings it back to the reality of physical life. It turns out that when Jane let the cat out in her sleep, the cat had a collar on. While it was outside, unsupervised, the cat got its lower jaw caught in the collar.
Oh, ouch. That's horrifying.
Yeah. It was stuck like that for hours until they found it in the morning. So Seth is revealing that Jane's subconscious desire for quiet actually caused a bit of suffering for the animal. It wasn't malicious, obviously, but it was messy.
It grounds her, doesn't it?
It really does. Here is a woman who can channel a multidimensional entity and read envelopes with her forehead, but her subconscious mind is just as petty and human as the rest of us. The cats are loud. Get them out of here.
It's a reminder that being psychic doesn't make you perfect. It doesn't mean you escape the clumsy, weird parts of being human.
And that connects back to the very beginning of our discussion today. We talked about Form 3 projection, the danger of forgetting who you are. Well, Jane forgot who she was when she was sleepwalking, too.
That's a great connection. Whether you are deep in the astral plane or just stumbling to the back door in your pajamas, consciousness is this fluid, tricky thing. We think we are awake right now, but are we?
That is the question Seth always pushes us toward. We have these rigid definitions of awake and asleep, dead and alive. But in Section 268, those lines are completely blurry. You can be awake but projecting. You can be asleep but acting out complex tasks like dressing and unlocking doors. You can be dead but alive in a new form.
It's all just a shifting of focus.
It is. The inner self is the constant. The ego, the part of us listening to this deep dive right now, is just one specific focus. But the inner self is the one reading the envelope, the one grieving the bird, and yes, the one annoyed by the cats at 3 in the morning.
It's fascinating to think that we are operating on so many levels simultaneously, and we're only ever aware of the tip of the iceberg.
And that is exactly why we study this material, to get a glimpse of the rest of the iceberg.
Speaking of studying, we have only scratched the surface of what Seth has to offer. If you want to really get into the weeds or the astral planes of this stuff, you need to go to the source.
Absolutely. We highly encourage you to visit the New Awareness Network. You can find the books, including the early sessions, Book 6, at sethcenter.com. That's sethcenter.com/early-sessions. There is nothing quite like reading the raw transcripts yourself.
There are gems in there that we just don't have time to cover no matter how deep we dive.
So true.
So, as we wrap up this warm night in 1966, I want to leave you with a thought. We talked about the danger of Form 3 projection, leaving your body and forgetting it's yours. And we talked about Jane sleepwalking, doing things her conscious mind has no record of.
Where are you going with this?
Well, it makes me wonder, if you can leave your body and forget who you are, and you can sleepwalk and forget what you did, how much of your conscious life are you actually awake for? How many things did you do today that were just automatic? Are you driving the car, or is the car driving you?
That is a very provocative thought. Maybe we are all sleepwalking a lot more than we realize.
Something to mull over tonight. Just check the door locks before you go to bed.
And maybe check on the cat.
See you in the next deep dive.